Today, my guest is Charles D'Amato, the Chief Product Officer and Managing Partner of Anigent. Thank you to all who are listening. Welcome back. I recently learned about Anigent and their software surveillance product, and I wanted to share that product with you, those of you out there that also may not be familiar with it. Charles, or Chuck, as we will call him, has a clinical pharmacist background. And he is the person responsible for a lot of the logic behind the drug diversion solution from Anigent. So he's been one of those that has been looking for diversion, and he has used what he has learned to then turn it into a software surveillance package. So welcome, Chuck. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
It is exciting to me to have a software surveillance product out there that is designed by a pharmacist. So if you wouldn't mind, start by telling us a little bit about your background and what prompted you to develop a drug diversion software product.
Thank you. And welcome, everyone. My name is Chuck D'Amato. I am a pharmacist by trade. I've been a pharmacist for over 30 years. And I've worked at Mayo Clinic previously for over 20 years as a clinical pharmacist. I specialized in surgical area and anesthesia, but I've worked pretty much everywhere. I supervised pharmacy operations administratively for a pretty long time. I moved on and became the supervisor of the pharmacy IT program, and then eventually the supervisor of the drug diversion program. And a common question that I get asked all the time is, how did you get involved in drug diversion, the passion that you have for drug diversion? And it all started about, roughly about 10 years ago in my administrative role. I was called to assist on a nurse that had been tampering with fentanyl vials. And of course, at that moment, we didn't know that this nurse was tampering with fentanyl vials. I come to find out that the nurse had been working there for over 9 months, and it really set in motion something within me to try to find a different way or a different solution to be able to deal and detect somebody or any individual like this that was diverting and putting a patient at risk and the institutions at risk. And it was at that point that I set about to try to look at things from a different model, kind of thinking outside the box about how do we identify these, because we are using all of the normal traditional methods that are actually still deployed today. And I wanted to find something more along of a predictive analytics and create that. So I went home, and in the middle of the night, after kids are bed and my wife thinks I'm a crazy man, I'm learning and teaching myself how to computer code. And it was from there that the prototype, the map analytics was created, and the vision has come forward from there a good 10 plus years ago from that day. When we took that prototype and we brought it back into Mayo Clinic, Arizona at that time, we were able to run that against the anesthesia data, and almost instantly we found 2 diverters that had been there for many, many, many years, and we were never able to detect in the past. So that point, Mayo Clinic was saw the potential and the value of it, and Anigent was born from that.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, a lot of times that's how things get started, but kudos to you for spending all your free time learning how to write code, and very rewarding, I'm sure, when you first started to put it out there and found the 2 people immediately. And then past that time, did you roll it out to all of the Mayo clinics then for kind of a trial and fine tuning?
Well, initially, especially in the very early days, it was about really understanding the clinical practice and how developing something of this nature could be utilized in a clinical environment, because there's so much variability that occurs within every clinical institution. And in a lot of cases, it's straight on down to even the specific nursing unit or anesthesia unit, because there's lots of variabilities. You have changes in staffing resources. You have different medications, compounded medications. You have hardware, different ADC platforms, EHR platforms. So just to name a few, hundreds and hundreds of different variables. So we had to start there first to try to understand what the problem was. And that is really kind of what Anigent is really built around. It's about understanding the clinical practice and developing the solution and adapting the solution to that practice. We spend an immense amount of time when we walk into a facility understanding the practice, hours, countless hours, going through the pharmacy department, understanding how things interact, the workflows, and then configuring and customizing that solution to meet the clinical practice versus what we get a lot of times with other software solutions, which is an inventory control model or a compliance model that is being adapted to clinical practice. So they're very, very different. We believe that our model is extremely effective, and it does eliminate a lot of the false positives and covers all of the gaps. It's pretty comprehensive.
Okay, so that was going to be one of my questions, but I think you just answered, is all the Mayo hospitals are not all the same. They don't have the same ADM and the same EMRs and
in some cases, they've done an excellent job of trying to standardize across the practice. The EMR has been standardized, and they do use the same ADC provider across the enterprise. But the differences of how those devices are utilized, where they're located, the amount that they have, and actually, even more importantly, is each of the doctors practice in those areas. I mean, it's almost like two surgeons never ever operate the same way and use the same medications. So the solution has to be adaptable, has to be able to understand the differences in that practice and be effective at it.
yeah, very true. What works on a medicine floor is not going to work in the cath lab or in the OR. I mean, it's completely different. Very true. The product, I know you started with the Mayo facilities. What year did you launch this out for people outside of Mayo? What was the year that you started from? It's been 10 years, I think you mentioned, but how long has it been available for outside the Mayo system?
Actually, not very long. We're right now currently implementing in at least 84 Mayo Clinic facilities at this point right now. So we've been around for less than 2 years as a company. So we're very new in that respect, but we've been able to achieve quite a bit because all of the prototype, the testing, and the refinement and the proof of concept has been actually done within Mayo Clinic, Arizona for so long. And this has been running in Mayo Clinic, Arizona for over 7 years with incredible success, to the point that Mayo Clinic got behind us and wanted to roll this out to the rest of the different facilities. So we've spent a lot of time really building a commercial scalable product that has incredible interface and functionality. And again, utilizing a lot of that time to configure and get things right at all of the different facilities of Mayo Clinic at this point right now. And now what we're really after is to reach out to a lot of other institutions and show them the value and the paradigm shift that has occurred with this new solution, the predictive analytics model.
Okay, that's neat. Yeah, I think a lot of most of the companies are pretty new, maybe not quite as new as the 2 years if you count, how long you've been available to others, but there's continual development and feedback and change this and do that. So it sounds like that painful part has already been done by the Mayo facilities, which is kind of nice. Then your customers moving forward will get a product that has had a lot of that done already by Mayo, and I'd say that's a plus. So in addition to that, which you mentioned, what would you say really sets your product apart from the others? Obviously, it's been in play for a long time and you've worked out a lot of the kinks, but what really sets it apart from the others?
I think what makes the map analytics product different from other platforms is because it's really truly the first and only comprehensive predictive analytics solution. I know there's a lot of other software providers that are out there that say that they might be able to do this or that, but we can actually do that because it's been proven. It's been built from the clinical ground up so that it has been embedded within a clinical environment so that we understand how things work. We've been able to show that with multiple diversion cases, no matter where we implement the solution. We recently had another facility that we had implemented on, and it wasn't but just a flip of the switch. We turned this on, and within a week, they were already turning over rocks and finding potential diversion cases. As far as how the program is built and what makes us different, is we utilize a risk compliance model. So it basically finds the anomalies within data and behaviors, and it identifies the cause behind those, and then assigns risk values to those costs. Because typically within diversion, everything is not black and white. It is a lot of gray. And what might look on the surface like it's diversion, many times is practice. In fact, for the longest time, we've always said that 99% of the errors that occur in an institution is practice, but 1% of that is diversion. And finding that 1% out of all of the noise and the false positives of that 99% makes it very, very difficult. We do an outstanding job of being able to find that cause and longitudinally track that pattern over time based upon risk and identify true diverters rather than having to spend countless days and hours doing data mining. And that is probably the main focus of what the difference is that we're able to actually identify diverters versus just providing a bunch of data to that end user, that auditor, and having them have to go and try to determine who their highest risk individual is. I would say that there is probably a couple other features. We are the only solution that has an integrated waste module and waste assay component that also has volume discrepancy integration, and that all flows within our main system. So we get a nice comprehensive approach. And then the final feature I would add is that our accuracy. We have very robust peer-to-peer analytics that is really looking at apples to apples, and without all the incorrect information and the false positives that can corrupt that data.
Okay, can you tell me more about your waste analytics?
Sure. Our waste analytics is based upon an optional feature that is included because the way we view the solution, the overall solution, the comprehensive solution preventing diversion, is you can't just work in just one area where you have electronic comparison between the ADC and the EHR. You're going to have those diverters that are just going to steal your waste, or they're going to tamper with product, and that, as we all know, is probably our highest risk in the place that we don't want to go, because that's where the real patient harm can occur. And then the last real feature, of course, is the peer-to-peer, where you get that false documentation. So the waste reconciliation module and the waste assay module become an integral part of the comprehensive review. It integrates that activity and those behaviors within the overall analysis of every single Salter user.
Okay, so does your product actually do the assaying, or do you partner with somebody that does the assaying?
Our waste assay module is agnostic. It can be used with any of the current devices that exist out there to do on-site testing, or even if you were to send it off to your lab.
Okay, all right, great. Currently, what part of the chain of custody does your software cover? So if you have the ability to do the waste assay, do you take it from manufacturer all the way through, or what part of the chain of custody?
The MAP program itself, MAP Analytics, covers everything from the narcotics vault straight on through to administration and wasting. So we have very tight controls, data points throughout that entire system, and analysis of everything that goes on through there. Commonly, folks will say, well, where is the procurement analysis and surveillance on that side of it? And what we did is recognizing that need to provide a comprehensive from end-to-end solution. We have partnered with Consortix that does that front end procurement surveillance. So we want to be able to provide a solution across for all medications, again, all locations, and for all users. And our program doesn't just work on controlled substances. It works for lots of different things, and it could be for lots of non-controlled meds too, including things like Botox or propofol, or any other requested med that an institution would like to monitor.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. In a previous call, you had mentioned that you are able to look at whether a user is clocked in, so to say, that they should be accessing things, but you don't use the time clock to do it. Can you give us any insight on how you accomplish that without using a time clock system?
Sure. The map analytics purposely does not use time card data for several reasons. The way we see it is the first issue we have with that data from time cards is that it's easily corrupted. Employee error, I forgot to swipe in, I forgot the badge out, and a typical payroll period is 2 weeks. You would have to really technically wait that 2 week period to be able to get that data corrected. Or you're going to ingest that corrupted data, and then that would potentially corrupt a lot of other downstream output from your program. So we are very concerned about using time card data for that reason. There's a second issue that we have with time card data, which is every shift does not actually represent clinical care. We have lots of people that go into healthcare, and I worked for the day and I clocked in, but I did research, or I was doing my continuing education, mandatory educations that I had to do. So a shift is not necessarily a shift in our world, but because we're doing very precise peer-to-peer analysis, we had to create a different intelligent way to understand the differences and comparisons between peers. And if an individual were to access an ADC device or an EHR device wrongfully, I came in and I wasn't scheduled to work that day, and I came in and I accessed the EHR or the ADC, our triangulation system of the way that we look at the data would very easily pick that person up. And that is a kind of a proprietary method. It involves hundreds of different variables all looked at the same time. But in our testing, we found that it has been much more accurate than using the time card data.
Okay, yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I know what you mean about the corruption, and they just forgot to clock in, and it's like, okay, we're going to ignore that for now, because yeah, that happens. What would you say to a hospital administrator that does not have a diversion monitoring program, but they say, we don't have a problem here and we're fine. We don't need, our people don't divert, and we don't need a monitoring program?
Yes, my response to that hospital administrator, believing that they don't have a diversion problem within their system, all we have to do is look nationally. A lot of the studies that have been provided to DEA and a number of others that have looked at this, they've said, there's a 10 to 20% estimated drug abuse problem that is going on within healthcare itself. I've happened to believe that the pandemic has probably made things extremely worse. I see that, I hear these when you have teams of care being given to with the gowning in and gowning out. We have a lot of handoff of medications that changes things. We have the increased use of contract employees that changes things. And there's been, unfortunately, less focus on practice standards. So all of these different events that have occurred have made detection that much more difficult. And in my 10 years of doing diversion monitoring across many institutions, there's a lot of diversion that occurs. And every time we've gone to a new place, we have found diversion. It doesn't matter where it is. And so my belief is that institutions that think that they do not have any diversion, it doesn't exist, likely don't have the technology to even see it or detect it. Map analytics provides that insight of diversion, but yet we do it within a framework of practice improvement. So we start everything where we're trying to identify these issues proactively and get them corrected early on. Is very, very helpful, particularly with new employees and contract employees.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have diversion, you're not looking. That's really the bottom line. You've mentioned a couple of cases that you've discovered using the software. Are there one or two that stick out in your mind? Any case studies you can share with us as how the software works and what it identified and the outcome?
Oh, so many cases, unfortunately and sadly. But there are a couple that definitely come to mind. One of them was one of the very original and first ones, and I want to highlight this one because this individual was an anesthesia provider, and
Mm.
this person had been working almost 10 years with us, actually a friend of mine, and that I had worked with on a number of things. Great guy. Did a lot of very, very friendly and everything else. Well, when we turned on the MAP program, we were able to see the pattern of behavior that was going on with this individual, unfortunately. And this individual had and this is public information, of course, a very robust fentanyl habit. And we were able to see it right away. We were able to bring this person in, meet with them, and fortunately get this corrected and managed. And to this day, that individual says that we saved their life. And
Mm. Yeah.
so it makes you feel pretty good about that part of it
Hmm.
because unfortunately, a lot of our cases were sad. But I will say, because we work in data and because of how we are analyzing the information, I always say that we probably protect 20 times more people than we have actually found because we're able to remove the suspicion of diversion a lot of times when on the surface it looks like somebody had been doing something wrong.
Yeah.
A second case I might point out involved a nurse, and unfortunately, this case did not turn out as well as I would have liked. We identified this particular user in unbelievably very, very sophisticated scenarios occurring. They had 5, 6 different events that occurred within 24 hours. And had been working for almost a year and a half with no diversion history whatsoever. What we come to find out later on is this person was actually working at a different hospital system, and in addition to working with us, and for whatever reason, they must have just decided that they were going to need to get their fix this particular day, and they were picked up within 24 hours and actually terminated within 48. We were all over that from day one. So very proactive solution. We're able to see even a rotation of a number of different methods all being deployed in very, very small volumes,
Mhm.
which is what we've seen a lot of these days is diverters trying to cover their tracks. They're very much aware of the traditional methods to monitor. So they're trying to beat that system.
Yeah. How long did you have the full monitoring system in place with that particular nurse? Had it been there for most of the year that they were working with you?
Yes, yes, and that's how we were able to realize that we were monitoring across the board, every single solitary user. And when we saw these events that occurred that particular day, alarm bells are going off on the program. And we went back and looked at the history and said, wow, that's really strange. This individual has never had an event, anything that we have seen before. And, because we're looking at things from many different angles, they did not have anything. And now all of a sudden they decided to use these methods that, of course, we picked up. And it wasn't just one, it was 5. I to this day, amazingly, this nurse was relatively new to healthcare, but I almost thought there was a component of organized crime because the sophistication level of this person's knowledge of how systems works and how to basically beat the system was amazing. And sadly, we reported all this information in this individual and terminate this individual. But it took this person went on to work at a number of different institutions for some time, and then eventually they were caught and had to surrender their license.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do the staff at your hospitals know that they're being monitored? I'm curious if she knew that there was monitoring at your facility, but the other one that she was working at, maybe they didn't. They had lots of gaps. It was a little bit easier. But like you said, there just came a day where she had to, do it once at your facility, and then she ended up getting caught.
Yes, I fully believe that to be the case. Is that our the culture has
Yeah.
changed, and we've had that even within our own audits within our system across the enterprise, is that is the first thing that we always talk about, is the collaboration between all of the different departments in the drug diversion prevention team. And I mean, that includes pharmacy, anesthesia, and nursing. But the collaboration of everybody, the awareness of controlled substance policy is robust. But what most people don't understand is the detection capabilities of the MAP program and what we're able to do. And I think that this individual was probably very comfortable diverting at any other institution they might have been working at. They did not have this robust monitoring program, but we were already employing MAP analytics all that time, and we were able to pick them up very, very quickly. And we pushed this data out in front of this individual, and there was nothing you can do but yet confess. So it's all data driven.
Right. Okay. Well, that's fascinating. And sometimes I think that just knowing that there's a program and knowing that there is a culture of monitoring and prevention and that type of thing, that keeps somebody from even dipping in the first time.
Yeah. I will say the one thing that we do get, Terri, is that we typically after that first wave, as particularly if you go into a new location, we would go into an ED department at an institution, and you're going to catch those initial people that have been there, probably been there for a very, very long time.
Sure.
What typically happens is that people that start to understand and start to realize that there is surveillance, they'll take off and go someplace else where there is no surveillance. Where we're after that first wave, a lot of times what happens is that you're now catching the new employee and the contract employees. But we're also because we can see the practice so well, a lot of times we can get these people righted very, very quickly. And if they're truly not diverting and it's just sloppy practice or they're not paying attention, we can get them onboarded correctly. So we've been able to get a lot of behaviors corrected that on the surface might look like diversion, but we've been able to fix those. So it has worked very, very well and very effectively at preventing diversion.
Yeah, and making them better practitioners if it's not diversion. So that's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Chuck. I've enjoyed hearing about your product, and hope there's I'm going to guess there's probably a lot out there that are not familiar with your company and with your product. So it's nice to get that information out, that there's another one out there that sounds great. I'm most excited that it's a pharmacist that developed it, because there's a different thought process, and it is great that you took the time to develop it. So thank you very much for sharing about
Appreciate
Anigent.
your time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.